HOA Karen cut the finger of my disabled daughter with a knife over a butterfly cake at the community bake-off. Children with special needs must learn rules, she said coldly. She had no idea that 15 years as a Navy SEAL had taught me exactly how to deal with threats to my family. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more Karen stories. I heard my daughter Emma scream from the kitchen. I dropped everything and ran to her. After 15 years as a Navy SEAL, I know danger when I hear it. What I saw made my blood boil. My 8-year-old daughter was holding her bleeding hand. The HOA president, Eleanor Blackwood, stood there with a knife. What happened? I asked, rushing to Emma. Your daughter wouldn't stop touching my cake, Eleanor said coldly. I told her to move away from the judging table. Our community center was hosting a bake-off that day. Emma had been excited about it all week. She cut me, Daddy, Emma said through tears. I just wanted to see the butterflies on the cake. Emma was born with a disability that makes it hard for her to control her movements. Simple things are difficult for her, but she never gives up. She loves pretty things, especially butterflies. She wouldn't listen, Eleanor said, putting down the knife without saying sorry. Children with special needs must learn rules. Her fingers would have ruined my cake for the contest. I checked Emma's cut. It wasn't too deep, but it ran across her finger. I wrapped a clean kitchen towel around it. You cut my daughter because of a cake? I asked quietly. Eleanor straightened her expensive shirt. It was an accident. She shouldn't have been reaching. If you taught her better. She's 8 years old, I said. With a disability. That's not my problem, Eleanor replied, turning back to fix her butterfly cake. Maybe this will teach her to respect other people's things. The HOA rules say children must be watched at all events. I picked Emma up gently, fighting to control my anger. This isn't over, I said. Eleanor laughed. Is that a threat, Mr. Reynolds? Threatening an HOA officer can get you fined according to our rules. I said nothing more and took Emma home to clean and bandage her cut. That night, after putting Emma to bed with extra stories to help her forget the pain, I started doing research. Just as I thought, there were no HOA rules about touching food at community events. Eleanor was making up her own rules again, picking on families she didn't like. We weren't the first ones she bullied. Since moving to this neighborhood 6 months ago after my wife died, I'd heard stories about Eleanor's mean behavior. Most people were too scared to stand up to her. I called my old teammate Marcus, who's now a lawyer. She cut your daughter with a knife? Marcus asked, shocked. That's assault on a child. With a weapon. I don't want Emma to go through a long court case, I said. She's been through enough since her mom died. So what's your plan? Marcus asked. I know that tone. It's the same one you had before our mission in Kandahar. I smiled grimly. I'm going to use what you taught me. The law can work better than any weapon when used right. The next morning I walked Emma to the school bus. Eleanor was in her driveway, measuring her neighbor's mailbox height. She looked at Emma's bandaged hand, then quickly looked away. Will Ms. Blackwood get in trouble for hurting me? Emma asked quietly. I knelt down to look her in the eyes. People who hurt others always face consequences, sweetheart. One way or another. After the bus left, I drove to the county office. By lunch, I had copies of all HOA rules, meeting notes, and money records for the past 5 years. By dinner, I had talked to 12 neighbors who had similar problems with Eleanor. The Martinez family was fined for having a birthday party that went 15 minutes past quiet hours. Old Mrs. Chun got in trouble for hanging Chinese lanterns during her New Year celebration. The Dixon family was punished because their son's therapy equipment could be seen from the street. No one fought back. They couldn't afford to hire lawyers, or they were afraid of what Eleanor might do. But I could fight back, and I would. 3 days later, I went to the HOA meeting at the community center. Eleanor sat at the head of the table like a queen, tapping her expensive pen on her papers. Item 6, unapproved decorations, she announced. I stood up, interrupting her meeting. I'd like to talk about something urgent regarding safety. Eleanor frowned. You're not on the schedule, Mr. Reynolds. Section 4 of the rules says any homeowner can raise safety concerns at any time, I said calmly, putting a copy of the rules on the table. And I've prepared a presentation. Before she could stop me, I connected my laptop to the projector. The first slide showed Emma's cut hand. People in the room gasped. On Sunday, the HOA president cut my daughter with a knife during a community event, I stated. Eleanor jumped up. That's not true. It was an accident while I was protecting my cake. An accident? I clicked to the next slide, showing security camera footage from the community center kitchen. Eleanor had installed these cameras but seemed to have forgotten about them. The video clearly showed Emma just looking at the cake, not touching it. It showed Eleanor swinging the knife toward her when she didn't move away fast enough. The room went silent. I continued showing proof that 67% of the fines given last year were for made-up violations that weren't in the official HOA rules. I showed financial records proving Eleanor had used HOA money to pay for her own yard work. Mrs. Blackwood has been running this HOA like her own kingdom, targeting families she doesn't like while ignoring real violations from her friends. I showed pictures of the unpermitted work done on Eleanor's own backyard. Eleanor's face turned white. This is a smear campaign. I've spent years keeping property values high in this neighborhood. It's not a smear if it's true, I replied. I've filed reports with the police about the assault on my daughter, with the state about the HOA's money problems, and with the county about ignored building code violations. I turned to face everyone in the room. I've prepared a petition to remove the current board and hold new elections, as allowed by state law when an HOA board acts in bad faith. I already have signatures from 62% of homeowners. Mrs. Chin, whose lanterns were called excessive and culturally inappropriate by Eleanor, stood up. I second this. Eleanor looked around desperately for supporters but found none. Years of being a bully had left her with no friends. When she finally spoke, her voice was no longer confident. You have no idea who you're dealing with. My husband is a partner at the biggest law firm in the county. And my friend Marcus is a senior partner at their main competitor. I cut in. Your choice is simple. Resign now or face criminal charges for assaulting my daughter, plus civil lawsuits for your money misuse. In that moment, I saw understanding in her eyes. She had thought I was just another resident she could push around. She hadn't bothered to learn anything about me, not my military background, my attention to detail, or most importantly, what happens when someone hurts my child. 2 weeks later, as Emma and I walked home from the bus stop, a moving truck was parked in front of Eleanor's house. Workers carried furniture and boxes while Eleanor watched, looking unhappy. Is Mrs. Blackwood moving? Emma asked. Yes, I said simply. She decided she didn't like our neighborhood anymore. Emma thought about this, then said something that showed why I would do anything for her. I hope she finds nicer people where she's going. Maybe then she won't be so mean. I squeezed her hand gently, amazed by her kindness. I hope so too, sweetheart. That evening, our community gathered in the park for the first event organized by our new HOA board. A potluck dinner where every family brought food from their culture. Mrs. Chen's lanterns hung from the trees, making everything glow warmly. The Martinez children played music without anyone watching the clock. The Dixon boy showed his therapy equipment to curious neighbors. Emma moved among the tables with more confidence, her bandaged hand no longer held tight against her chest. When she reached the dessert table, she stopped at a beautiful cake covered with sugar butterflies. That's for you, said Mrs. Patel, our new HOA president. Everyone helped make it. We wanted you to know that in this community, butterflies are meant to be enjoyed by everyone. Emma's face lit up with joy as neighbors gathered around, making sure she could see everything. The fight with Eleanor didn't need my military training, just a father's determination to protect his child and build a community where she could be happy. As I watched Emma blow out the candles on her butterfly cake, cheered on by neighbors who had become friends, I knew I had won the only victory that mattered. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy, but building something better from what they tried to ruin. As a SEAL, I was trained to tear things down when needed. As a father, I learned to build things back up, stronger than before. Emma looked up at me, frosting on her cheek and happiness in her eyes. This is the best day ever, Daddy, she said. I kissed the top of her head, my heart full. It's just the beginning, sweetheart. Just the beginning. In the months that followed, our neighborhood changed. The new HOA board, led by Mrs. Patel, threw out most of Eleanor's made-up rules. Kids could play outside past 7 p.m. Holiday decorations from all cultures were welcomed. Gardens could grow naturally without strict height limits. Emma became the unofficial neighborhood ambassador. Despite her physical challenges, she greeted new families with homemade cards. She helped Mrs. Chin hang lanterns for Chinese New Year. She cheered the loudest at the Martinez boys' baseball games. One day as we walked through the neighborhood, we passed Eleanor's old house. The new owners, a young couple with twin toddlers, were setting up a playset in the yard, something Eleanor would have never allowed. Do you miss the butterflies on her cake? I asked Emma. Emma shook her head. I like real butterflies better. They're free to fly wherever they want. I smiled at her wisdom. At 8 years old, my daughter understood something that had taken me years of military service to learn. True strength isn't about controlling others but about letting them thrive. The scar on Emma's finger had faded to a thin white line, barely visible unless you knew where to look. But the changes her injury had brought to our community would last much longer. The next weekend, we hosted the neighborhood's first butterfly festival. The community center was transformed with colorful decorations. Expert gardeners taught classes on planting butterfly-friendly flowers. Children painted butterfly face masks. Mrs. Chin organized a kite-flying contest with butterfly-shaped kites dancing in the wind. Emma, wearing her butterfly wings costume despite her mobility challenges, moved through the festival with confidence I'd never seen before. People made way for her, not out of pity but out of respect. "You've changed this place," Marcus said, visiting for the festival. "I've never seen a neighborhood turn around like this." "I didn't do it alone," I replied, watching Emma laugh with her new friends. "Sometimes people just need someone to stand up first." "You know," Marcus said, "in all our missions together, I think this might be your finest hour, Jack." I thought about the scared, isolated community I'd found 6 months ago. I thought about Emma's tears when Eleanor cut her, and her smile now as she helped a younger child put on butterfly wings. "It's not about the missions," I said finally. "It's about what we're protecting." As the sun set on our first annual butterfly festival, the community gathered for a group photo. Emma stood in front, her wings glittering in the golden light, surrounded by neighbors who had become family. The photo would later hang in our community center with a simple caption that Emma had suggested: "A single butterfly can start a hurricane." Eleanor Blackwood had wanted a perfect neighborhood under her control. Instead, she'd accidentally created something much more beautiful. A community that had learned to fly.